Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Welcome back, Whistlers. We're really happy to
Right.
see you here on our 12th episode, June 22nd, 2026.
Yeah, awesome. Great to be here. Looking forward to speaking to our whistlers today.
So,
Very cool.
listen,
All right.
first things first, happy Father's Day. I hope the dads had a great weekend. And Vinny, how was your Father's Day?
It was good. Kids were here. Had my in-laws. I'm kind of like the house in between everybody. So
Mhm.
I get all the holidays and all the Father's Days and all the Mother's Days, which I don't mind. I love cooking. So that's fine. We actually did a big, huge barbecue yesterday, and my kids got us Met tickets for the Boston Red Sox game next month. So
Wow.
it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be good. And then, you know what? It was a sunny, nice day here in New York. So
Oh, you can't beat it, right? It
no,
was,
no.
yeah. I
What
know. I
about
was
you guys?
FaceTiming with some of my New Yorkers yesterday, and the sun was out. It was gorgeous. So
Yeah,
I was happy to
yeah.
see that. And I'll be back there soon enough. So that'll be great.
And you guys had a brunch yesterday, right?
We did. We had a really nice brunch, did church brunch. And then my husband got some really cool gifts. The kids got some great things. And Vin, you're going to like this. One gift was a gun.
Oh, shoot. I'll have to text him later, see what he got.
Yeah, he was super psyched about it. Yeah, and then a lot
cool.
of pool basketball, and that was quite a feat.
Good. Very, very, very cool. All right.
Nice. We got some crazy stuff going on, Vinny. Do you
Always.
want to help cover this for our whistlers? We're going to break down about 6 different topics for you today, and things that are currently in the headlines, but that impact our lives when it comes down to from the federal level, and it drips into the state and then into our local. Vinny, let's break it down, and also how the media skews. And we're going to start off with one of those, right? A skewing in the media.
Yeah, 100%. Let's start off with this JD Vance thing going on The View, and
in a lot of the museums, there's so many. Where they're taking down the actual history that happened in this country. Slavery happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And it seems that it has been very easy for this administration to remove that and also to denigrate Black folks who have worked their behinds off to get this American dream. How do you, you know better.
I think, okay, look at Washington, D.C. One of the most democratic and one of the blackest, by share of population, blackest cities in the United States of America, has seen a radical decrease in violent crimes and sexual assaults and in murders. We have tried to take the crime issue seriously, in part because we believe everybody, whether you're black or white or rich or poor, deserves to live in a safe neighborhood.
Why does the crime? Where does the crime step in? This is not about crime. This is about
women lost their jobs. Rights.
This is about
Sonny,
human rights.
What you're saying is
Black
we got to do more on the economy.
Black history has been erased from public
Black
spaces.
history is not erased from public spaces.
We do have to get to Iran.
oh my God.
I don't even know how that show still exists, but okay.
Well, you know what? I don't think Barbara Walters would be agreeing with how this has taken such, from the local news, from the federal news, from an honest viewpoint, and now we're at this. I mean, what the hell is Sonny even talking about? There's nothing that's being erased. I mean, this president, was the founder of Juneteenth. I don't understand. The guy was there to sell a book. And of course, crime has everything to do with it, because if they didn't care about the Black community, where they wouldn't be going into these minority-filled neighborhoods and try and clean up the crime so everybody can exist. I don't understand what they're talking about. They are so one-sided, and it's just the guy's just trying to sell a book, and he's just trying to get his point. And he said that there was a little politics in there, but it was all about his faith in God and how he's changed and all this other stuff that is worthy of reading and listening to. And it had to go right there. So it was kind of, I had to watch it. We all had to watch it because, and hey, listen, God bless him for going on there, knowing that he was going to take a little bit of a hit. I mean, it's kind of tough knowing that you're going into the lion's den. He did it. He did it with grace. And I I always think they're just trying to jump on the Republicans for something, even though they were being polite and they weren't calling them names. And Joy Behar made a comment, "You're one of the good ones," or some kind of thing like that. During the break, which he acknowledged. I don't know.
Well,
I'm surprised that ABC still has this show, being that it's a mainstream show. I do.
You're talking about people that keep on, Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that too, right? With NBC and everything. So
yeah,
they continue to lean this way. But to your point, in that they are taking a situation that should have been about his book and his faith,
right.
And they are switching the narrative and race baiting yet again.
Yep.
And it just never seems to end. And you're right, it is good that he went on the show because balance is best, period, end. And when we have a media influence, this is primetime, daytime television. And when you consistently push an unhealthy narrative to the public, that is dangerous,
right?
For a number of reasons.
100%. And let's just be honest. Suppose somebody walked in that audience, and it's not a very big audience. Suppose somebody walked in there, with a MAGA shirt on. They would probably throw them out.
Right.
They have to go through security to watch The View, and they just destroy our immigration procedures at the border. It wasn't supposed to be about that at all. It was just supposed to be about him, his faith, and how, what his experience he went through. Yeah, and again, I say this twice a show. Politics aside, the guy just wanted to go there and talk about his book, and it had to go not even it had to go to the race thing and how black people are getting all this stuff is being taken. Name one thing. I tried Googling. There's nothing that's being taken away. There's nothing that's being erased from the history books.
So I'll make a point to that, okay? And it was Juneteenth on Friday, all right? The day in which the southern states who were still keeping slaves the slaves were not aware that they were freed, and it took the Republican Party who had freed them, Abraham Lincoln, to go into those southern states to make sure that they knew that they were no longer enslaved. So yes, we want Juneteenth. We want to be reminded on how that process actually took place and which party was really responsible for it. But that aside, so during the Obama administration, many of these museums were influenced by a different ideology, not historical fact. And what happened was he placed these things like the Emmett Till statue and in different scenes within museums that reflected the fabricated, 1619 project, or a lens on slavery that really has no founded documents, but instead just a kind of revisionist lens. They went and made these statues and museums to push this revisionist history. This is what Trump was pulling back on, and it was in his executive order 14253, issued last March of 25, where he called it Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. That is what Whoopi was trying to attack, and she was calling it the taking down of Black, history.
Oh.
No, there is no bullshit. There is American history. And I will say, as a Sicilian, that my culture suffered the largest lynching in U.S. history.
That's right.
In the late 1800s.
That's right.
I don't see a statue for that anywhere. The largest one-time lynching with Sicilians.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for any type of recognition of that. I'm American. My grandparents came here with the hope and the dream and achieved it. Wasn't going to happen for them, anywhere else. So that alone, is where we need to take a step back, balance both sides of this argument. And that was unfair. He was treated unfairly. And then the second he even tried to come back, then Sonny Hostin attacked him. And they constantly never let him be able to explain the narrative, which is what they do. They gang up, they have a little plan. You know, I mean, Joy Behar, keep your mouth closed. You had blackface, Joy. You had blackface at a Halloween party. Keep your mouth closed. Right. So this is the type of nonsense that hopefully the whistlers can relay to others. It's about revisionist history. That's what Trump is removing and restoring proper history.
Sure. And you know what? And I'm all about having slavery in the history books, and
absolutely
just tell it correctly. You know, it was black slaves were being sold by black people. Right, to people here, and less than 5% of the people in the country at that time owned slaves.
Correct, and 5%. Black people own slaves as well. Many don't know that.
That's right, and I don't want to make this a race thing because I just don't want to, but they always do like that. Right. That they always do that. That view is always about that. They play that race card, and I swear, I always say it, the mainstream media kind of, they educate the dumb, and they just, whatever they say is gospel. And I just one little bit of fact checking on whatever they say on a daily basis is everything is debatable. Right. And debating is fine. It's healthy. Like I get that. We can go back and forth, but man, they are just, I mean, never mind Donald Trump, or if they have a Republican on, Donald Trump will never go on there again, but never mind when they have a Republican on, it is just a nonstop bash. And it's sad. It's really sad. Right. And then you'll see, Republican people, in the media, they'll try and have, debates with Democratic people, but you rarely get that. You'll rarely have Democrats, have Republicans come on, and the 1 minute that they do, they got a bash, and it's not healthy anymore.
Right. And what we should see and hope for is more unity and more honesty, and dividing the nation in this way is not healthy, and it's not the way to go. And you know what? For his book, Communion, J.D. Vance, we push you here on The Whistle. We're going to push your book. We ask everyone to take a look at it because that's what it should be about. It should be about harmony with one another. And they should have pushed that instead of their narrative. Yeah. That was a downfall for that show yet again. Yep. But I will say, I see it in education as well, that revisionist that they try to push that, especially in New York, largest student population in the country, and a one party government in New York, all Democrats. And immediately back in 2000, they began changing all of the curriculum to be this DEI 1619 project, pushing all of that instead of the truth. So not healthy.
You know what? I'll leave it with this. Everything has become political. There's not one thing
Identity
that we
politics,
do. Right? It's everything from school to government, big government. You know what? Everybody's like, oh, big government, little government. Whatever works. I don't care. Like everybody's afraid to say whatever works. I'm okay with. Right. And it's too much of it's too much division. Yeah. So, but you know what? I have a feeling like we'll be talking about The View with other guests in the future too.
I'm sure.
Jesus Christ. So anyway, all right, we got some Anthony Fauci stuff going on here, right? We got to let's call it a Fauci bash, shall we?
Yeah. The Fauci Files. I like the Fauci Files.
Yeah, I like that. Coin that phrase. And anybody says it, just got to give us $1. So all right, so we have Tulsi Gabbard coming out first. So Amanda, could you show us that first video, please?
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 When under oath, he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research.
Yikes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. How do you want to start this? What do you start with this guy?
Okay. So this is a really deep lens. Again, this word, because this is what we're going through, like a magnifying glass under the Trump administration, where they're really picking apart corruption, the deep state, that word that flies around that no one can quite clear understand. This is a man who, in his late 30s, gets a top level position, approximately age 39, in the NIAID, right? So the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He gets in this position and then maintains this seat, like other politicians, for 40 years, Vinny, 40 years, and embedded in the fabric, the highest paid government official, paid higher than the president, paid higher, the highest paid government official. All right. He has connections with the intelligence agencies, used his power, most likely his influence with funding and grants, because it's always follow the money, sat in private meetings with the top leaders in control of these intelligence agencies and had them using him as the only expert on the very chaos he caused. It is mind-blowing. Is there not an intelligence community rule that, wait a minute, Fauci, if your agency funded the subject matter of our investigation, then perhaps you can't also be the expert we're relying on.
Right. How is that not a conflict of interest? Crazy. Right? How is that not a conflict of interest?
And the lies, Amanda, can you please, the Rand Paul video?
Words, this research matches, indeed epitomizes, the definition of gain-of-function research done entirely in Wuhan, for which there was supposed to be a federal pause. Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan? Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress. Microphone down.
Your microphone.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
Yeah. Since 1984, he was appointed by President Reagan. You know, and the problem I have is, look, he's 85 years old now. So what was he during COVID? 79, 80 years old. Take all this nonsense. He should have at this point a wealth of knowledge. Okay. And that would be the guy that you go to for your wealth of knowledge. But with that said, when something is new and something is upcoming and these strains are unheard of and people are dying, like, I don't know if the 80-year-old is the right guy to listen to. I just don't. He's at the top, just giving his opinion. When was the last time he was in, looking at patients? When was the last time he was in an operating room? All this stuff, your stuff tends to go. One of my best friends is a trauma surgeon down in Miami. And he says, listen, you don't want, you want people like me who are in these bad neighborhoods, who fix 5 bullet holes a day, who their skills are sharp, who they see something new every single day. This guy probably hasn't picked up a stethoscope in 20 years. So right. I'm not sure, just because he's, he's kind of like a grandpa when you ask advice. I don't think at 80 years old, 85 years old, I don't think he should be the guy anymore.
Correct.
He shouldn't have been that guy.
Correct. And here's it a step further. Even in education, every 7 years, educators are encouraged to take a 1-year sabbatical. This is what we have to get back into the classroom. We have to, or go for further in certifications or what have you. This man remained nothing but embedded within the system and advanced only his interests. He got a handle on how funding and the mechanism of grants worked. He took that and extended himself into areas that were unscrupulous without any oversight, because he is the oversight. He had the audacity to sit there in front of Rand Paul and say, oh, people looked over this up and down the chain. Whose chain, Fauci?
Right.
Your chain? Don't pull our chain, because you are parsing words and lying to the public in that congressional statement. You can't turn around and say, no, that's not gain of function, because you're missing the exact way you're supposed to say it. Are you kidding me? And then when Rand Paul came back to him and said, really? So reversing genetics isn't gain of function? Because you said it was in 2012, Fauci. Now suddenly you're sitting here and you don't quite want to say it that way. How dare you insult the intelligence of the American people, for whose position you have acquired your wealth through our taxpayer dollars. And instead, what did you thank us with? A pandemic.
That's right. And, and it's just a set, and I've seen it. I've seen it at the local level where, police officers or, federal agents just try to get away with anything, just kind of, push their belief or just say, this is what we want. And without even just thinking of the ramifications, it's like a false sense of immortality that these guys get. And, as much as he's an intelligent guy and all this stuff, you can't get away from an email or a text. You just can't do it. I've been able to pull up 6-month-old texts that people have deleted, and there's everything. In 2026, you could pull up stuff from 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think he's still in a pickle, quite honestly. And for Joe Biden to pardon him on any future issues, which was so outrageous that didn't even make sense.
And I hope that that's legally challenged, Vin, because it doesn't. How can you pardon somebody on a crime they haven't even been convicted of yet?
You can't. And it blows my mind.
Shield politicians or people who work within a governmental agency to that extent. Let's look at Dr. who Mengele from the horrible Holocaust. This man was another Fauci, who went and tortured twins. I was there. I went to Auschwitz. I will tell you that I was inside those torture chambers. This man tortured twins to see if they could feel what one was doing to the other. He took pregnant women and went inside and stuck needles into their fetus to see what it could go on and on what he did to these people to gain his own, medical knowledge. Let's play the next video to show what else Fauci's done. This isn't a one and done. This is a career. Go ahead.
Yeah. Things about those experiments, Al, is that it turns out many of those kids, if not most of them, did not even have HIV. So there's not even a pretense that there was hidden benefit for these children in being guinea pigs for these drugs. These kids were chosen because they didn't have parents to protect them. And the law says you can't do that. The law says if they don't have parents, the state has to appoint a guardian, and the guardian cannot allow experimentation on those kids unless there's a clear benefit from the medication to the children. And that's the only way that you can legally do it. So Tony Fauci made sure and none of those kids had guardians, which is illegal. And then he hid what he was doing from the boards. He took foster homes in 6 states and he turned them over to the pharmaceutical industry. He made sure that the people who were running those foster homes did not even have medical training. Most of them were immigrants who came from the Dominican Republic. They knew nothing about medicine or responsibilities, and they were sickened when they realized slowly what they were involved in doing to these children, that they were torturing these children. And you know, there's videos of these children, an old BBC documentary that will make you cry. I promise you, you cannot look at these without weeping. They're, you know,
crazy. You know, and here is someone who was a Democrat who decided to work for a Republican president, and he is different in the fact, like, he is exposing a lot of stuff, and the Democrats don't like it. They're exposing a lot of stuff, and Democrats don't like it. It's just like when you say you go back and forth with this guy, he has got a career full of questionable things that have taken place. And again, he's 80 years old. I mean, and you know, going back to, you know, the sabbaticals, I'm a huge believer in, you know, mandatory, you're out. You know what? You know, if you're a teacher, and I'm just using a number, you know, 25 years if you're out. If you're a cop, 25 years or you're out. If you're a politician, you know, 3 terms, because you tend to lose it, and it becomes more about you than more about the public or the kids or the community.
That's right.
And it's a shame that we're seeing that, especially at this level where thousands of people have died. I have a friend that almost died in the hospital. He is screwed up for the rest of his life because we were forced to take that goddamn vaccine. And it drives me crazy that my friend is so screwed up from this vaccine. And thank God he's the only one that I know, that personally know. But you hear of hundreds and thousands of people that have got, you know, the stuff wrong with the heart and this and that. It's just, we were shoved down our throat.
Terrible cancers, right? Tons of things coming out of this. Yeah. Because it's genetically designed. So people want to say like, oh, no, everybody doesn't have that reaction. Well, of course you wouldn't, because it's an mRNA, the M standing for modification of your RNA, which is your ribonucleic acid, which is what defines who you are in your genes. So if you are someone who genetically has a predisposition to kidney disease, a predisposition to heart disease, a predisposition to liver disease, you are then going to have that particular genetic predisposition compounded by that mRNA vaccine. Wake up. Of course, they wouldn't make it the same single thing happening to everyone, because then it would be easy to trace, would it not? Okay. It's just insane. And the fact that you watched that this man was permitted to perform HIV tests on orphans, you are a sick, evil monster. And that is what RFK referred him to, as sick, evil monster. Okay. I just cannot believe it took this long to uncover that he was so evil. He had successfully achieved whatever he wanted with complete disregard for humanity, especially the innocence of children who did not have parents. And then also the understanding is that the HIV medication did more damage in many aspects to the gay communities. And nowadays, now HIV, whatever, with HIPAA and you don't have to disclose anymore and all this other nonsense, they're on medications for the rest of their life. That's how everything is. Just medicate for the rest of your life. And he's a part of that whole pharmaceutical evil industry. So too little, too late. Was he stripped of all of his, things that you get as being a part of a federal government, like, certain access to secret things and whatnot? Yeah, he was, but who cares at this point? Stripping him of that is the least of what should happen to him. And I don't care if he's 85, he should be behind bars. Tortured behind bars. But you know what? My faith and says, Lord says, have mercy, have grace. But listen, you know what? I retired. All my stuff got stripped. Like, there's no reason for me to know everything what's going on. I find out what I can find out, through the legal channels. But and regardless, who cares? He's worth like $15 million. You think he really gives a crap if he lost his top secret? All of that should be taken. All of that, right.
But that was a big problem. And President Trump had said from the very, very beginning that this came from a lab. It wasn't a monkey or a rat or whatever the hell, all this bat, all this nonsense. Correct. He had said it from day one. He probably knew. His intel probably told him that, which was believable. And then they reverted to when they spoke to Fauci, saying, "Well, if we say this, then Part B comes along." So
wow.
He won't. Listen, it's going to keep going with him. Again,
and this whole immunity, it's another, we're learning as Americans how people can take advantage when you get embedded in a government. We're coming on our 250 anniversary. Our country has gone through so much, but in these past 30 to 40 years alone, unbelievable. And just, it goes to show that we need change within the government. Big change.
Yeah, we just need to abide by the laws and be strict and not do anything unethical, and we'll be fine.
Right.
Everybody, I always say this country is built on greed, and that's the problem. All right.
If on that note, talking about change in the government, do you want to skip to the education one, or do you want to move forward with what's going on in the UK?
I mean, we could, whatever you think. We can go to education if you want.
Because we'll keep it here at the federal level. How does that, Amanda? You good with that, girl?
Amanda's good with anything. She's the best.
She's easy to go. All right. So let's take a look then at change within the government as a result of the things we just learned with Fauci. Department of Education issue.
The Trump administration is taking additional steps to dismantle the Department of Education by moving 2 high-profile functions out of the agency. The Justice Department will take over the enforcement of civil rights in education, while the Department of Health and Human Services will oversee special education. The Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, says the changes better align the needs of certain students with the relevant federal agencies. Critics warn that the changes will undermine efforts to protect students, especially minorities, those with disabilities, and others.
All right. So let me give my 90-second spiel on this. And since you're the educator, we'll let you roll with this.
I'm listening. I'm all ears.
The DOJ has a civil division. Okay. HHS deals with this type of stuff. It makes sense. The teachers union is very powerful. We saw that during COVID, between Fauci and what they based their recommendations on. Half the schools were closed. That was a huge negative effect across the country. That's the way I feel. Okay. By moving these out, it eliminates any bias within the education community, and it'll have somebody separate just making these decisions. Okay. Listen, and this is a question for you. As far as like being the head of one of those unions, are there any requirements? I mean, could a gym teacher, nothing against gym teachers, could a gym teacher be the head of a union if he chooses to go that route?
I mean, absolutely. But it's more about, who on the inside and who you're going to pay homage to when you get into that seat. But on the local level, a gym teacher could be your representative in your school district.
Yeah. So, and again, not one of my best friends is a gym teacher, but if that person decides to move up the chain, you have a physical education teacher making decisions on things that are political standpoints and not really necessarily better for the children.
Right.
So this is your little box here. Let's hear what's your thought.
Okay, so on your note, Randy Weingarten, for example, is a labor lawyer. She never spent a moment teaching a student ever. Okay, and this is a woman who has been another one in control, cemented in the system. Okay. My union leader back when I was in the boroughs. And so immediately when she came in, and I'm in the earlier tiers, thank goodness, before she came in, because then when she came in and she began changing tiers 4 and 5 and so on, she reduced a lot of what protected us, I'll be honest. And a lot of teachers don't realize that. But beyond that, union is what it is. What Linda McMahon is doing, okay, let's go back. Let's know our history. President Carter instituted the U.S. Department of Education. We didn't have it before the late 70s. We didn't have that. All right. It was already within those entities. The federal obligation to the states to assist in education only existed as far as the 80s was concerned.
Right.
All right. So it's not that old to begin with. we took a chance on it. We wanted to see if the federal government kind of putting it into a vacuum instead of spreading it across different agencies would help education expand. And in some respects, it did. Things did get a little bit better when you have one focused organization on education. However, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in comes the Obama administration and Common Core. That alone permitted the federal government to overtake curriculum across almost the entire 50 states with funding and grants known as Race to the Top. So those grants, you see the money, those school districts want that money, and they're going to adopt a single blanket curriculum across the entire United States. Nothing more foolish could have ever been done.
No.
What it actually wound up doing, and again, this is verified by the National Association on Educational Progress, which is an independent organization that examines countries, not just the United States, but puts us up on a scale against the countries around the world, and then examines us interstatewide. And what they learned was that Common Core caused a steep decline in student performance.
Oh my God.
And the inequality gap grew drastically. So the very people who shout from the rooftops, equity, 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 actually caused a wider gap in equality, okay, and equity. So this is why Linda McMahon is stepping in under the direction of the Trump administration. And they're saying, let's clean this up because it is 30 years deep, okay, wrought with issues that are causing our students to not perform against our contemporaries around the world. That is a frightening, frightening thought. And it needs to be cleaned up quickly.
Yeah.
All of those who oppose it claim, oh, she's taking away rights for civil rights and rights for special ed. That is not happening at all. It is just being reconfigured back to the organizations, the agencies that it was initially with. And now the next step is to make sure that within those organizations, there are smaller nucleuses that focus only on that education aspect, which is how it should be maintained. So that way it's spread across multiple agencies instead of inside one controlling factor.
Right. And where are we in the rankings across the world as far as math and science and all this stuff? It's terrible.
Horrendous.
I remember, when Common Core came out, my daughter was in elementary school, and we literally had to have an adult. The parents had to come in and take a tutoring class from the teacher to try and figure it out. And we were all up in arms. And the teacher had to show us a video. It wasn't even her showing us on the board. She had to show us a video because she couldn't even figure this nonsense out.
Right.
So it was just horrible. So you know what? I'm glad this is working out.
And I have to say, kudos to Linda McMahon because, she's not just someone. People associate her with Vince McMahon. He, created the WWE. I mean, an enterprise in and of itself, right? But this woman, in her own capacity, was on boards of education in Connecticut. A lot of people don't know that. Okay. Yeah. She has a background of working with nonprofits, of working with the federal government on many levels. And so for this reason, she is the right person for the job. In Trump's first administration, he had put her in charge of small business. In this time, I think she's even more accurately placed, in all honesty. Okay. Yeah, I myself, I did a government project under Linda McMahon, and I will say she really spread it across the states, took people with educational backgrounds and had us help to distinguish where certain funds needed to go. And we evaluated numerous applications, and it was a very intense project. But you know what? I got to see, through this experience, how this new Department of Education is really balancing those factors across a bunch of different methods instead of, again, just leaving it in the hands of one ministry, so to speak.
Right.
You can't do that. Once you have that one set of control, you're going to have a Fauci situation.
Yeah. And let's be honest, life experience beats any type of good grades. And you know what? She has a ton of life experience with, in the business world. She knows how to handle people. She knows how to deal with, all the nonprofits, through whatever it was. Her father is who he is. Good for her. That exposed her to be, a good
Ready
leader.
For this role, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, even the commissioner of NYPD, she comes from a very wealthy family. She was like president, she ran a transportation department. Like she has life experiences that she's able to bring forward to these, this field. So, I'm happy this is happening. I think, listen, we spoke about this, and people speak about this all the time. Like the Department of Education, it was time for a change. It was time to just
big time.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay to say it's not working the way we want to. We have to change it. And
especially
you find that a lot.
A technological revolution coming.
Oh my God.
We're due for a change, everyone. We're due. And here's one more fact on that. New York, over half of the fourth graders, according to New York standards, were deemed proficient in math and state tests. I will tell you, we were told first the passing grade was 65 2-3 decades ago. Then it dropped to 55. And after the pandemic in the 20s, after we became a one-party state in New York, guess what the passing grade became? 45. Now I have complaints from educators within many of the counties in New York that they are being told that a student with a 19 do no harm. Right. Do not fail them. A student with a 19. And so on the NAEP, when they went back and looked, this is an independent group coming in and examining, they found out that it was actually 40% less according to the NAEP studies. So they exaggerated the gains. Michigan said 65% of eighth graders were proficient, while only 24% cleared the NAEP exam.
That's triple the amount. Yeah.
You're talking about 20%, 25% of New York students, of students in Michigan, unable. 75% of your students are not proficient in math and reading.
No.
That's it. That's the last comment.
And I remember, I remember during that time, I lived with this. My daughter would have a test coming up, and she would go, "You have to go to the store." I go, "Why?" "I got to bring in 3 boxes of tissues. If I bring in 3 boxes of tissues, I get 5 points." What the hell is? What the? Are you kidding me?
We have to stock the classroom on top of it. Yep, that's been going on.
For passing grades,
and you're getting points for it. Unreal.
All right,
let's get to the UK. This is
yikes.
This is tragic. Keir Starmer has resigned today. Let's bring it up. Let's go to the UK gang rape inquiry.
Yep.
This report is over 200 pages long, and it goes into the root causes of probably the most extensive, widespread scandal that has ever beset Britain. It goes to every corner of the country. It's not in silos, it's everywhere. And it involves failure by the British establishment. And by the British establishment, I mean, obviously, government ministers, the civil service, local government, social services, the police, the judiciary, the NHS, and the media, who is supposed to be the guardian for the British people of scandals like this, but they've singularly failed to do that.
Yeah, of course they failed. Of course.
The details in this gang rape inquiry. Okay. Let me repeat. Keir Starmer resigned today. Okay. He resigned. That's how powerful this is.
Yep.
You're talking about a study that they went to court documents. Nothing in this gang rape inquiry is hearsay. Nothing.
No.
This was publicly and privately funded. Okay. So you're talking about no bias, publicly and privately funded. Raised about $600,000 to have to do this on their own because the government had tried to stop them multiple times. Okay. They went to verified court cases. They spoke to victims directly. They collected data going back from the 1950s. Yep. So we see that there has been an infiltration of Pakistani culture into immigration into the UK. It's been spanning for quite some time. Yep. We saw it alone because the mayor of London was Pakistani. He had made a lot of headlines. But there are 14 other prevalent territories in London, major cities, so to speak. Also Pakistani mayors and leaders there. So the takeover of the UK as a result of Pakistani immigration, people don't realize how deep it has really gone because it has been covered up by the news sources.
Right.
We did the report, for example, Vin, you brought it up with the incident with the Novak young man and the gentleman there who was a Sikh of a different, culture as well. But then once the Pakistani and the Muslims of that origin came in, then it called in more different types of in the Muslim faith. So what Rupert, shows, that's the man who was speaking, Rupert Lowe's Rape Gang Inquiry Report shows that over 250,000 white British girls have been raped, gang raped, have been forcefully converted to Islam, have been drugged, have
forced
been
to commit crimes.
Forced to commit crimes over a span of the past 3 or so decades. Yeah. And there seems to be one person, an imam, a very powerful imam, known as Dr. Taj Hargi, an imam of the Oxford Islamic Congregation. He is particularly cited in this report, provided the 95% estimate that his assessments that approximately 95% of the grooming gang members are Muslim. Okay. This is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. And, and those girls were 11, the average age between 11 and 16. They had vulnerable past, so they were able to bring them in. But there's a victim that wrote a book. Her name is Sammy Woodhouse. Her book is called Just a Child, Britain's biggest child abuse scandal exposed. By the age of 16, she had 2 abortions. She claims that police knew what was going on. She claims that police were directly involved and said that they were called cop nights, where these people, in lieu of getting arrested, would give the underage girls to the police and they would rape them. And she said that the government knew all about it. And it was fascinating. I was listening to her. It was like a 30-minute interview. I mean, you could just watch that video, or I'm going to get that book. I'm going to see what else she has to say. And I don't mean fascinating in a great way. I mean fascinating that there was so much turning the blind eye, so much acceptance to this in that government at the local level, that these kids, now adults, are exposed and ruined for the rest of their life. I mean, my kids, when we go back and forth about today, they call me like Liam Neeson from Taken, because I've seen, I've with all my, my clearances and stuff, I know what went on in the world. And, I kind of like a little conservative, making sure that everybody's safe, but they exploited women. They targeted these are groups of people. They are associated with a ton of people in politics, and there's a paycheck everywhere. And this is a huge, huge problem. And again, this is like a political football, because people just want to, they want to look the other way and not bring out the fact that the Muslim community came in and specifically started. And I'm not saying all Muslims are bad, but this report indicates that bad people from the Muslim community came into Britain, and they started doing this, and this is how they made their money. This is how they did it. And police were involved. They knew about it. If they're involved, that means local politicians are involved. That means everybody knows what's going on. It's almost like the Michigan, Minnesota thing here. We're all going on. Everybody's trying to fly out. People are not.
There's some technical difficulty, Vin, on your voice. So I don't know if that's on both of our ends, but get closer to the mic.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Any better?
Much better. Perfect.
Oh, okay. I was just probably getting excited and bouncing around a little bit.
with right to do so. I mean, you're talking, it is sickening that they would, hand them in. But you know what, Ben, we have seen this, right? But you wouldn't think the UK, you would think that it was, a higher standard of respect because they're supposed to be, a long-term empire. These people always, talk about the civility and their education and so many things within our own literature comes out of, Britain's historical past. So you would never imagine, but clearly they have become a degraded country, it's disgusting. We know these things and why, right? Why? Who encouraged? And you're right. It isn't about Muslim. That's not what we're saying here. I myself have a Muslim family and Muslim friends. They are peaceful. They are loving. They do wonderful things in their community, not just for Muslims. So that's not the point. They're like 9 points in a part of the Quran. Again, the Quran is 3 parts. There's like 9 parts in one section that talk about things that could be viewed as radical. And it is up to that Muslim community whether or not they're going to exercise that. And for the most part, I don't believe they do. However, you will find some that do. This has nothing to do with that. These people are hiding behind their Muslim faith, making it look bad, coming into a country. And then the government said, we didn't want to look racist. We didn't want to look religiously insensitive. So we didn't arrest them. We didn't penalize them for their crimes because we didn't want to look like, ooh, British are, against the Muslims. British are culturally insensitive. So you allow crimes to happen against children? What is wrong with you?
This is how simple this goes. You're letting bad people in a country that do bad things. And I always go back to immigration. Okay. If 5 people come to this country from a different country and they get away with a bunch of stuff, they're going to call back to their country and say, send the troops because we're not getting in trouble for this stuff. And after 5 or 10 or 20 years, you have a massive problem. And you know what? You'll never see something like this happen in Poland. Poland has got the strictest immigration rules. They don't want anybody in there that's going to cause problems. And kudos to that country, man. They're sticking by it. And they go, yeah, you know what? You can call us racist. You can call us this. You can call us that. We don't care. My job is to deal with the Polish people and make sure that they're safe. And you see with these lax laws around the world, these are the countries that are Britain and the United States and letting all these people in. This is exactly what happens. And it's an absolute shame that this is going on. But this is what happens when you don't enforce your immigration borders.
Right. And you have to wonder why they didn't. Who was in power at the time that permitted it? And how did it benefit that person or that group of people or that political party? So there's always a backstory that the people don't get. You allowed a major immigration issue and you left it unchecked. And then not only that, but you had a cartel, so to speak, of an imam who kind of drove these gangs in multiple districts across the UK to, harvest this type of behavior. This is where someone was getting paid off. And when you hear that the political leader, Keir Starmer, only wrote very strict letters, harshly worded letters to stop your behavior instead of putting people behind bars, then you would know then Keir Starmer was probably one of the people who benefited from what was taking place. Okay.
This is a multi-million-dollar business.
Multi-million-dollar business.
It's disgusting. But you'll see it. You'll see it. We'll be talking about this again for sure, because this is not going to stop. I know they arrested over 500 people so far since this is broke. So,
And then they want to say things about Trump bringing down, the Colombian president, now going after Cuba, making sure that, because they brought these things into America too. And the UK should take a note on what President Trump has done, and they need to rein it in. And big kudos to Rupert, and lots of prayers for all of these hundreds of thousands of young children.
Yeah. I'm all welcome bringing people in. You better be good and you better assimilate to our culture. That's it. That's it. All right. A few minutes left. What else we got? Okay.
Go ahead. Run down the list here as we wrap it up for all whistlers. We did that, the Department of Education. That was great. We went, I've got so many notes here.
See that? We jumped over one thing and now I'm all screwed up. Amanda, you got to yell at us.
What about Adam Schiff? Adam Schiff? You got the UFC. Let's cover that for a hot second.
Yeah.
The ringleader. Bring it up.
The alleged plot to attack the White House at Sunday's UFC fight apparently had a ringleader, according to the Department of Homeland Security. 31-year-old Abraham Alvarez of Nebraska was also an illegal immigrant from Mexico who came to the United States as a child and overstayed his visa, later given protection under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program. Arrested at this church in Nebraska, which tax records show he owned and he planned to use as a safe space. Though still in its early stages, the plan was to deploy drones with explosives to hit buildings and force an evacuation of thousands of people, who would then be targeted by snipers who would hit, quote, high-value targets, including lawmakers and business executives who accepted money from pro-Israel lobbies.
This was a low-cost, high-impact type of plan. This went from aspirational to ongoing kind of operational aspects of this, because they were already acquiring some of the equipment needed.
The Justice Department sharing this photo distributed by one of the suspects last month, showing a rifle, helmet, and ballistic vest. The head of the UFC telling TMZ he was aware of this and other threats.
Oh my God. Goes right into immigration right here. You got to know who you're letting in. It was, in the DACA program, which is basically a 2-year extension for kids. After that, you still have to apply for your green card and all that kind of stuff. But this always leads back to this. This is a huge problem with just letting people in based on, because you want to make sure that everybody's getting treated fairly. You have to have your security plans implemented at the border, and they have to be followed correctly. And you can't just say, hey, let's have more votes. Let's bring some more people in, because we know deep down they're going to vote Democrat, because we know all that was going on. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Biden was trying to turn Texas blue. Let's be honest. And that's what took place. And he was trying to skew the census. Right. So, you know what? This is what happens when you let people in. This is what happens when you're worried about people's rights. These people play the role of a victim, and you're so worried about their rights and infringing on, oh my God, we can't do this, we can't do that. That kid from Florida that shot up Parkland, a few years ago, the cops had visited his house over 30 times. 30 times. And it's like,
preventable.
All this stuff is preventable if you just stop worrying about all these kind of freedoms and all this kind of nonsense that you're worried about a lawsuit. And the fact is, I think it's this person's mother was the one who called into the authorities, or somebody else, either this guy's mother, or one of the other person's mom, heard them talking, and they were like, "Oh my God, I got to turn these guys in." Right. That's crazy. I mean,
thank goodness.
Thank God. Thank God. But again, we're talking about the federal government today. This is almost every one of these things is leading to like immigration problems and concerns. And I don't even think our immigration laws are tough enough, quite honestly. I would like to see them.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They need to be even stronger. But I will say praise to your buddies over there at Homeland Security, Vin, because they really kept that event safe. And Dana White said that he was aware of it the whole time. They had him intact, with everything going down. They were on top of it. And it's so true. They were so clever. They were going to use drones. He definitely had some plan. And they had about about 6 or 7 guys that they showed in that segment on the news. They weren't all of one race, faith, or color. So this was something across the board, perhaps Antifa related. You know, these young men with no purpose in life, they get easily drawn into these, you know, militant behaviors, and so this seems to be that it could have been something along those lines. But you know, bringing in with it the fact that he is someone who came as an immigrant, and then, you know, we offer as a country a program like DACA to further boost you in your American dream, and instead you abuse and use it. This is another reason why we need a much stricter, you know, system of review.
100%. Thank God, no one got hurt. But all right.
All right. This was a fabulous show. We'll wrap it up. Whistlers, please check us out on all the social media, Rumble and YouTube and Facebook
Twitter,
and Instagram. And we appreciate having you with us every week.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll have some more topics to discuss. So be safe, and we'll catch you next week.